Hello and welcome back once again to the Wrestling Group. That's right, I am your host Ryan, and today we are going to be doing our preview and predictions for the pay-per-view that takes place tonight. That's right, Forbidden Door is open. We have superstars from AEW, from CMLL, from New Japan, from Stardom, from Ring of Honor, all competing on the one match card. There are 12 matches in total. 2 on the kickoff show, and then the rest is main card. So without further ado, let's kick straight into it and start having a look at who we think is going to win each of the matches. And of course, you can play along too and let me know in the comment section down below, who do you think is going to win each and every match, and then we can compare to see who got more right. So we'll start with match number one. Well, I say number one. I mean, there's 2 on the kickoff show. Obviously, the order hasn't been announced, but I'm going to go through what it says online. So, first match is going to be a Sky Blue versus Makia. These are both going against each other to face for the last spot for the TBS Championship Survival of Fittest. We've had multiple matches of recent where the women are facing in one-on-one action to then get a shot at the vacant TBS Championship. Obviously, this is going to be on Dynamite, so the Survival of Fittest match isn't going to be on the pay-per-view, but obviously Sky Blue versus Makia will be. We've seen Sky Blue get some single opportunities lately. She was in the Forbidden Door. The Owen Hart Cup as well. She lost in that, but she gets a shot at the TBS. If she beats Makia. Do you know what? I'm going to go for Makia for the win, to be honest. Just going based off who's already in, I feel like her style would suit the match more. I don't mind Sky Blue. I love the Triangle of Madness. I think they're great in what they do. I'd rather see Sky Blue and Julia Hart getting pushed for the tag titles now. I don't feel like Sky should be getting the TBS Championship, not when you see the other women that are in the match. But I'm going to pick Makia for the win. I'm going to hope she picks up the victory and qualifies for the TBS Championship match. So match number 2, we have the AEW Tag Team Champions. Obviously, just spoke about them then. Divine Dominion, which is Megan Bayne and Lena Cross, and they are going to face 2 from CMLL in Thunder Rosa. Well, Thunder Rosa's dual contract. She's got AEW and CML contracts, former AEW World Champion. And Olympia, who obviously wrestles for CMLL. Now, if you go back and watch I always forget the name of it, the all-women's CMLL pay-per-view they did a couple of months back, we had Olympia versus Megan Bayne in a one-on-one action, which is a really good match. Probably Megan Bayne's best match that I've seen personally. Not a big fan of them being tag team champions, this whole 5-minute squash matches thing. I feel like we built up a division when we first announced the tag titles. We introduced so many different teams. Then we had the Babes of Wrath win the belts, which was great. Everyone was behind them. They had a couple of good title defenses. And then the division just sort of disappeared and everyone started doing their own thing. Then they put the belts on Divine Dominion and we've just had squash matches since. It's been a bit crap, to be honest. So I'm more than happy and ready for another team to take the belts from them now. And I feel like Thunder Rosa and Olympia would be perfect to do it. There's plenty of women on the roster that can, could be going for titles that aren't, because there's not that many women's options. There's the women's world title and there's the TBS title. Now we've got the tag, so we can start building tag teams. Thunder Rosa's, she's been loved since she's been in AEW. Olympia's been brilliant in CMLL. Plus, they can go back and forth then between the companies, so they could have them defend the titles over in CMLL as well as AEW. So I think it'd be perfect to put the belts on them now. So I'm going to pick Thunder Rosa and Olympia to get the win. I'm going to hope to get the win, because like I say, I feel like the tag division has been stalled under Divine Dominion. So we'll go on to the main card, and we'll start with the AEW Tag Team Championship. So obviously we have Cope and Cage. They are the current AEW Tag Team Champions. They won the belts, defeating FTR, who unfortunately are going to take a bit of time out of wrestling at the minute. We hope we hope and pray they sign new deals and stay in AEW, rather than going back to the Fed and being wasted. But we've got Open Cage there. Two brilliant matches. In fact, was it 3 in the end? Definitely 2 brilliant matches against FTR. And then we've got the Dogs who have come over from New Japan and have wanted to make an impact. We have David Finlay and, of course, Clark Connors. Clark has been a former tag team champion in New Japan, and David Finlay has been. In fact, David Finlay won the New Japan Cup about the year before he left to come to AEW. He's been former Impact tag team champion as well. I'm trying to remember now, did they win the IWGP tag team championships? I think he might have. I can't remember off the top of my head now. But they've both got championships in their history, so they're looking to become AEW tag team champions together. And they do remind us a lot. Cope said it in an interview recently that he looks at the Dogs and he thinks that's the type of faction that they've inspired to become a team. If you look at early Cope and Cage, some of the stuff that they're doing is quite similar. David Finlay reminds me of a young Adam Copeland, and Clark Connors of a young Christian Cage. So I'm really, really looking forward to this match, and I can't wait to see them mix it up. But for me, I think Open Cage, considering they've just won the tag team titles, it took them a bit to do so as well. They didn't win them in the first shot. So I feel like they're going to keep the belts for a little while. And of course, we want to build to eventually having Open Cage face the Young Bucks. That's obviously a dream match of theirs. So we're looking forward to that in the future. But I think it's going to be a really good match. Definitely going to be interesting. And I like to see the Dogs get a good match out of this. Because, I think if they want to do them as a tag team in the future, they're definitely going to be future tag team champions. Or they could be trios. Again, with obviously Gabe Kidd. I know last time they only won it for about a day or two. But, if they wanted to, when Gabe finally comes back because of his visa problems, they could challenge for the trios again. So I'm going to say Cope and Cage pick up the victory and retain their titles. Up next, in another tag team match, we have the Young Bucks. They are going to be facing El Sky Team, which is obviously Mystico and Masquerada, who have just recently, in fact 2 nights ago, picked up the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. So that's interesting. Obviously, the titles aren't online. When the match was announced that they weren't the champions. Mystico now holds 4 championships across 3 different promotions. He's the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion with Masquerada. He is a Trios Champion with the rest of El Sky Team in CMLL. He's the IWGP Tag Team Champion with El Desperado. And he is the lightweight champion in CMLL as well. And they are also facing Unbound Co. I can't stand that tag team name, sorry. The faction. It's basically War Dogs and Los Ingobernables. They've basically just put them together, haven't they? So Shingo Takagi and Titan from that. So it's going to be a really good tag team match. 3-way, like I say, we've got team from AEW, team from New Japan, and team from CMLL. And of course, we have the current Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions in there. I'm going to say the Young Bucks pick up the victory here. It makes sense. The Young Bucks, we need to get them pushed towards doing that story with Cope and Cage. I think that's going to be generational tag team matchup between them. One of the greatest tag teams of the late 90s, early 2000s versus the greatest tag team in the last decade. So that is what we're looking for. So a pick up a victory here. Although if they didn't get pinned in the match, not the end of the world. But I feel like the Young Bucks are going to pick up the victory. And then we're going to start looking at Cope and Cage versus the Young Bucks. So up next, we're going to look at Jon Moxley versus Bandido. So obviously Jon Moxley is the AEW Continental Champion, and he'll be facing off against the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion Bandido. Only Mox's title is on the line. Obviously it's Continental Championship, which means Continental rules, which means no one is going to be at ringside, so the Death Riders won't be able to interfere to help Jon Moxley, and the same with Brody King to help Bandido. So everyone's banned from ringside, and there's a 20-minute time limit. So this is going to be An interesting one, potentially could be match of the night. Jon Moxley has never ever had a bad match in my opinion in AEW. He's a fantastic wrestler. So lucky to have the ace in AEW. And then you've got Bandito for the last 2 years. He's been one of the best wrestlers in the freaking world, not just in AEW, not just in Ring of Honor. He's been one of the best in the world. Some of his championship matches last year was absolutely outstanding. His matches against Takeshita, Hechicero, even the one against Brad Christian recently was really good as well. So again, it's another one that I don't think really that I can think of the top of my head anyway has had a bad match. So really looking forward to this, although I do think Jon Moxley retains the Continental Championship here. I don't think we're going to see it go to Bandito. I wouldn't be disheartened if it did. I'm a massive fan of Banditos, but I think Mox is going to pick up the victory and retain his championship. We'll move on next. When you talk about Jon Moxley, you think of obviously the Death Riders, which we've got a pack of the Death Riders facing. What we'd like to say is Jon Moxley's adopted son, Shota Umino. Obviously, for those of you who used to watch New Japan, when Jon Moxley first debuted there before AEW, he entered the tag league and took Shota under his wing. And over the years, he's gone back and forth to New Japan to help Shota out when he's needed it. But obviously then when he became a Death Rider, the way they took Danielson out and stuff that unfolded after that, Shota distanced himself from the Death Riders group. He could have easily have turned heel and joined them. Mox would have definitely took him as a member of Death Riders, but Shota is obviously the biggest babyface in New Japan. He's finally won a championship in the company. He's never held a championship before, and he's picked up the global championship. So we've finally got Shota Umino as a champion after challenging for multiple titles for the last couple of years. And like I say, he's going to be facing the Bastard Pac, one of the greatest wrestlers we've had in AEW since the beginning. Fantastic wrestler. He's got great pedigree, great history. He's probably in the best shape of his life. This match for me is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I think it's going to be brilliant. I think it's going to be a really good show in a face versus heel. But ultimately, I think Shota Umino is going to pick up the victory and retain the Global Championship in his first title defense. So up next, we're going to look at some of the women's matches, and we have the Owen Hart Cup final with the winner receiving an AEW Women's Championship match at All In at Wembley. We have Maya World, who's been on a fantastic run over the last year, coming to the company with Hyan as tag team fill-ins. They jobbed out a couple of matches at the beginning. They replaced I can't remember the names of the two women that refused to job. What were the names? Nixon Newell and her partner. That's not important for me enough to remember. Anyway, so they come in as a team, jobbed out at the beginning, did the job, putting over the girls in the tag team tournaments, and have gone on and become absolutely brilliant themselves. Maya World obviously defeated Athena on Ring of Honor. She then earned a Ring of Honor World Championship match and had a really, really good match against her former teacher for the title. And she then beat Athena again in the Owen Hart Cup. And that's led her to a match with one of the greatest women's wrestlers in history, Mercedes Moné. And Mercedes, since coming into AEW, has stepped up, I'd say 3 or 4 different gears. She's in the best run of her life. She's had a fantastic reign as TBS champion. She's had brilliant matches. Again, there's another one. I don't think many, if at all, bad matches in AEW since debuting Mercedes. She's always been one of the star attractions in the women's division, and I'm really excited about this match. Although, as much as I like Maya, I think she's on a great run. I think she's future champion material, but I think right now we're going to go with Mercedes Moné. She's been trying to get this AEW Women's World Championship for over a year now. She's tried and failed multiple times, against Tony Storm, against Chris Statlander. So I think now's the time for it to go get the victory, go on to All In and face the AEW Women's World Champion in Tekla. It's probably the biggest match in the women's division that AEW can put on right now, and it makes sense for them to do it at AEW All In. Yes, I know they're both heels, but I think we can pull it off. I feel like it's definitely the best women's match that you can have on the card. So I'm going to pick Mercedes to pick up the victory and face off against Tekla, which takes me to obviously the AEW Women's World Championship match with Tekla, who is the most exciting and enjoyable women's wrestler in the world right now to watch. I absolutely love her. I think she's been a brilliant addition to AEW. I hope we see her at the top for many years to come. She's just brilliant. And she's facing Starlight Kid. There's not a hell of a lot of women that I do know from Stardom. Obviously, I've been watching more of the stuff since a lot of the women have been used in AEW, but for me, it's hard to get a hold of to be able to watch it properly. And I pay out so much every month for wrestling, I just can't afford another company. But I do know Starlight Kid, and I do like some of the matches she's had before. Obviously, these have faced off before. But this is going to be for the AEW Women's World Championship, and Starlight Kid is defending the honour of Stardom after Tekla waged a war on her former company. I think it's going to be a brilliant match. I think it's going to open up a lot of eyes to some people that have never seen Starlight Kid wrestle before. And it's going to be very interesting in terms of where they go going forward. You know, Forbidden Door for me, I've always wanted it to be us versus them sort of situation, which it hasn't really been over the years. It's been more exhibition matches, trying to put on the best matches available, which is fine. But I like a bit of a story build, so I'd like a bit of a us versus them. Like, come show us why you're better than AEW claim to be. Obviously, we're the best wrestle, and I feel like Tekla's finally done that. So Tekla's building a wall between us and them. So I'm really excited for this match as well. But I think Tekla's going to pick up the victory. And like I say, if Mercedes then wins, we're going to get Tekla versus Mercedes, which is going to be a hell of a match at AEW All In. So up next we have the first match that was announced for this pay-per-view, and it's obviously Kenny Omega versus Zack Sabre Jr. That's right, these are facing off once again. It'll be the first time they face off in AEW. They faced off a couple of times over the years, a couple of times for New Japan, definitely in the G1 Climax. Was it Rev Pro, I think they've wrestled 4 years ago as well, maybe 2016, 17, something like that. But this is the first time in an AEW ring. And it's been interesting because Zack Sabre Jr. has made a thing of saying that no New Japan wrestlers have held any AEW titles yet, whereas obviously we've seen it a couple of times, vice versa, where AEW guys have won New Japan belts. Most recently, obviously, Andrade is the global champion. Takeshita is currently the New Japan television champion. John Moxley's been the IWGP champion while working for AEW. You know, so we've seen it a couple of times over the years that way, but not the other way around. So Zack Sabre has said if he beats Kenny Omega, that gets him to the AEW World Championship. So I am excited to see how this one goes. Definitely think Kenny Omega is going to pick up the victory. That's just me. I think I'll back Kenny Omega against most people because I'm a massive, massive Kenny Omega fan. Without Kenny Omega, I wouldn't have watched New Japan. And without Kenny Omega, I wouldn't have known what an AEW was when it started. So, yeah, I just can't see anything other than Kenny getting the victory. And I think if Kenny wins, he's going to then face MJF at AEW Redemption, which is in Canada. So I'm going to say Kenny picks up the win and then earns himself the number one contendership. Speaking of number one contendership, we are looking at Will Ospreay versus Swerve Strickland in the men's Owen Hart Cup final, with obviously the winner then getting the AEW World Championship match at AEW All In. Now, this match is going to be my pick for match of the night. I feel like whatever happens, like, this is going to be the best match of the night. You've got two of the best wrestlers in the world. Will Ospreay has been on an absolute another level since joining AEW. He's been absolutely phenomenal. He's been trying to push for that AEW World title, never quite getting there. I think the only championship match he actually had for the AEW World title, if I remember correctly, is actually against Swerve Strickland at Forbidden Door, when Will Ospreay was the international champion. He faced Swerve for the AEW World Championship. I'm dead excited about this. I love Swerve. Swerve's been absolutely one of my favourites for the last couple of years. He's superb. He's brilliant. Definitely preferred him as a heel. I'd love to see him at the top of the mountain again one more time as AEW World Champion. But I feel like right now it's Will Ospreay's time. I still, even if you go back and look at the previous prediction videos I've been plugging all year for Ospreay versus Omega, in the main event of AEW All In, and that's where I'm going to still stick with. I feel like Kenny Omega gets the victory over Zack Sabre Jr., then gets a shot at MJF for the title at Redemption, beats MJF, and then goes on to Wembley as champion to face Will Ospreay. So that leads us to the main event, the steel cage match of Team Briscoe versus the Don Callis family and MJF. And obviously, if Mark Briscoe wins, he earns a future shot at the AEW World Championship against MJF. Now, that could be literally Wednesday on Dynamite. Like we've seen it with Darby Allin, where he picked up the victory and then got his shot literally a couple of days later and then ended up winning the title. And I feel like we're going to get that again with Mark. Obviously not win the title, but I feel like Team Briscoe will win and he'll call his shot and get the championship match straight away. A couple of things for this one. We have obviously Darby Allin, Kenosuke Takeshita, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, Orange Cassidy, and Mark Briscoe. They are all on the team of obviously Team Briscoe, and then Team MJF. You've got MJF and the Don Callis family members of Kevin Knight, Cal Fletcher, Jake O'Doyle, Kazuchika Okada, and Andrade El Idolo. So for me, the simple thing that's going to happen in this is Don Callis family are not going to be getting on. Mainly like Andrade and MJF don't get along, so I can't see Andrade wanting to help MJF pick up the victory. He lost to Darby Allin originally, which got Darby the shot at the title, which I think is where the hatred for Andrade's come from on MJF's side. Obviously, Andrade's wanted a shot at the title for months now, and MJF's been avoiding him, so obviously Andrade's not that best fund on MJF either. Then we've seen there's been Kevin Knight and Cal Fletcher haven't really been seeing eye to eye since Kevin Knight's come in. So I feel like there's a lot of things that's going to happen in this, but the eventual breakdown of the Don Callis family and MJF will lead to Team Briscoe picking up the victory. Obviously, Darby Allin's got his history with MJF. Takeshita's got his history with both Okada and Cal Fletcher. And then we've got Conglomeration, who one of the best factions in AEW right now. And then obviously they've all worked together for a while. So you've got Briscoe, Cassidy, Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly. They're a strong unit. Obviously, the trios champions are in there as well, with Orange, Roderick, and Kyle. So they've been on the same page for a long while. Whereas obviously the Don Callis family, we've got new members coming in, and obviously we've got this stain between MJF and Andrade. So there you have it. I'm going to pick Team Briscoe for the victory. So let me know in the comment section below, who do you think is going to win each of the matches? Which match are you most looking forward to? And which match do you think is going to be match of the night? And obviously, if you haven't already, please do check us out on TikTok and subscribe, of course, to the Wrestling Group on YouTube.